And of course, we'll move on to other stories now. The Nigerian Railway Corporation has suspended the Lagos, Canoe and Ajakuta train services due to fear of terrorist attacks. Now, officials say the train services will not resume until the security along the Lagos-Canoe route and the Ajakuta train station is guaranteed. The NRC is said to have suspended services at the Ajakuta station along Warri-Itakpe route because of an attack on some passengers by gunmen on Monday. Now, the Lagos-Canoe train services were suspended because of the high level of insecurity in Niger and Kaduna states, which are the routes of the train heading to Canoe from Lagos. Meanwhile, Minister of Transportation Muazu Sambo says new protective technologies will now be installed before train operations can resume on the Abuja-Kaduna route. He disclosed this during a familiarization visit to the Idu and Kubwa train stations in Abuja. The minister says necessary measures will be taken to avoid a reoccurrence of the March 28th train attack. Sambo says government is in the process of acquiring explosion sensors that will detect and eliminate threats on the rail track. He assures Nigerians that normal train services will be restored on the Abuja-Kaduna route only after all the kidnapped passengers are reunited with their families. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Arise News analyst Dr. Amadi, and of course we'll be joined by an official of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, James Zang, who is joining me now from Lagos. Thank you so much, Gyang, for joining us on the show. Now, can you take us through the latest developments that we have on the suspension of the Lagos to Kano train services?
The Nigerian Railway Corporation received reports of presence of bandits along the Minna-Kaduna axis, and because the Lagos-Kano express train passes through that route, we felt it would not be safe for us to move our passengers and cargo along the corridor because we want to avoid a repeat of what happened in Abuja-Kaduna. And because of that, as a responsible organization, the management deems it fit to suspend that passenger traffic for the time being until security situation improves. That is the situation on that axis. And I'm also aware that I'm sure you are aware too that on Warri-Itakpe line, the Ajakuta station, there's an issue of communal clash within that environment. And to that effect, I think it also led to the suspension of the chairman of the traditional council of the Ajakuta Council in the person of the Ohi of Egayi. And then there was also associated security issues along that area. So we think also that because of this security situation, we will not allow our train to stop in that station until the situation is brought under control. However, I wish to clarify the issue that the misconception that the train service on that corridor has been suspended entirely, which is not correct. The train service along that Warri-Itakpe corridor is still ongoing, but the only place where the train service is suspended is the stopping of the train at the Ajakuta train station because of the communal clash in that environment. And like I said earlier, that communal clash resulted into the suspension of the chairman of the traditional council of Ajakuta. So we felt because of that, we will not allow the train to stop in that area until the situation is brought under control. Again, on the Abuja-Kaduna train service, you know for now that it's been suspended for a while following the attack that occurred on the train. And the minister, in his wisdom, believes that the only right thing for us to do is to ensure first and foremost that all those who were kidnapped on that train service are released to their relatives. We cannot commence train service. As we are aware, I'm sure by now that the tracks have been restored, everything is set for commencement of service, but that we cannot do until we are sure that all passengers on aboard the train who were kidnapped are released to their relatives and are safe in their homes. That is the situation with the Nigerian Railway Corporation as it is today. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll just ask you to hold on there while I get back to my guest here in the studio. Dr. Sam Amadi, I mean, this is the federal government listening to the voices of, the families of the abducted train kidnappers, passengers, and then halting the Abuja-Kaduna train service, the resumption of that train service, just like we've heard. Everything is set, but they've decided to halt it. But with this latest development of suspension of train services, 2/3 of the train services in the country have now been shut down. Are the terrorists gaining an upper hand, or is insecurity having an upper hand in all of this?
Sure. I mean, first, the federal government rightly discontinues the Abuja-Kaduna train services to respect the families. But again, I think the bigger thing is to fast-track release of those victims who are still held. You can't suspend that service ad infinitum, considering that the roads are themselves totally out of it. Not everybody will go air travel, and of course you have to wait for plane from Lagos, Abuja, anywhere before you can. So basically they have to, the issue is not just symbolic response, it's to do everything to get them out and restore service. And then
just yesterday some of them were freed.
Were freed, so maybe we're getting there again quicker. But then if you look at the fact that 2/3 or 1/3 at minimum of the train service across the country has been shut down, basically, whether it's communal conflict or whether in deference of fear of terrorist attack, suggests that we are losing a lot, and this fight is not being won at all. And they're succeeding. If you conduct by this way, we'll probably get all the train station services out. We'll probably stop road movement, because you see, if you look at Abuja, Lagos, Abuja East, that train helps a lot. But again, even if the road itself is almost out of it, with the way flight tickets are going up because of obviously out of our control, fuel cost of aviation gas and jet and all that, the imperative now is that you might find ourselves where we can make the mobility required for economic development will be out of it. The cost is going to be huge on the economy. Of course, the economy
this infrastructure is supposed to be the poster child of the Buhari administration.
Again, the cost, it means that you are borrowing money again to build infrastructure, and you can't run that infrastructure. And then you are probably looking for extra money to fit in world-class state-of-the-art technology. Because we're talking about sensor for explosives around all the train routes. We might be having perhaps the most expensive infrastructure, not in terms of quality, not in terms of the service they give you, but in terms of protecting even rudimentary infrastructure. Think about locomotive train. This is not like any sophisticated. Takes you hours to get to destination. Even the Eurostar, and all bullet trains may not even have the level of technological protection we are trying to be, simply because we're not able to deal with the fundamentals of how to fight this Boko Haram. So look at how large our road expanse is comparably. So if you're going to line it up with sensors for all the train rail service stations and roads, and the roads, of course, then you look at, even Abuja here, we get a lot of traffic stops, stop and search, just to, beat the terrorists. One can argue that no sacrifice enough is too much to make sure that we don't have any major attack. But if you look at the cost-benefit analysis, the question is, we will start shrinking essential services the way we are doing, and then where we will stop. And at the point, we'll probably have to shut down all forms of mobility, including aviation. So that's really the challenge and the worry, that we're spending more to respond to terrorists instead of focusing more on defeating them and restoring services so that people can freely move. But then, of course,
okay, and I come back to you again. The Lagos to Canoe route is a very lucrative route, and I saw that some of the wagons that you introduced were already transporting goods and all of that. And a lot of Nigerians were happy because, it took a lot of pressure off the road, and which means that the roads will be maintained properly as a result of that. But with this suspension of services now, I want you to tell me, does that affect the almost 2/3 of the entire rail network that we are hearing, or is just analysts being just trying to project that. Is that the real situation, that about 2/3 of the train services in the country have been suspended at the moment?
A sizable number of train services have been affected, actually. Mainly, like you mentioned, now the Lagos to Canoe has been suspended. Yes, we were moving cargo from the ports in Lagos here and down to Canoe, Kaduna. And because of the security situation, we cannot move. Then Warri Itape, like I said, Warri Itape service is still ongoing. It's just that we are not stopping now at the Ajakuta train station, you know. And then Port Harcourt, Maiduguri. I'm sure you are aware of the reconstruction of the line that is ongoing. So that didn't stop because of the security concerns, but because the tracks on that corridor are being reconstructed and rehabilitated. That's why the service is not ongoing. Again, the Lagos-Ibadan train service is ongoing. It's not affected by the security concern. So some other services are also ongoing. Now, it's not true that 2/3, a number of the services are affected, yes, but we're still running. We're still running the Lagos MTT. We're still running Lagos to Ibadan train service. And then some other services too, shuttle services are still ongoing. The major one, like the Canoe, Lagos to Canoe, is affected because, like I said earlier, the security concern on Mina, Kaduna. That has affected our ability to move either passengers or goods on that corridor. We can move as far as Ilorin, but going further down because of the reports we received in Mina, along Mina, yes, and then parts of Kaduna, which is known to everybody, we cannot go beyond those axes. It's better we remain safe, the goods are safe, than taking the risk of having people like kidnapped or the train bombed again and we're starting all over. We're losing lives, we're losing resources. I think it's better for us as a nation that we suspend some of these services and be sure that security is in place. And I'm aware too that government is doing a lot with the security agencies and also NRC to ensure that security is placed along the rail corridor before we can commence our service. I think that's in the interest of Nigerians, in the interest of all of us, would have the peace of mind, and we'll be sure too that the increased revenue we are yearning for, we will achieve. It's not just to start in a hurry and then get it disrupted and then lives are lost. I must also say here too that NRC is working with security agencies to deploy security measures and also preventive measures. Proactive measures is being put on the corridor. We are also looking at deploying technology, the use of drones for surveillance of the tracks. Physically, policemen, military men are also to be deployed on some of these corridors. And there are so many other things that we intend to deploy that it wouldn't be right for me to say that on air.
For you to mention, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, just give us an idea of what the NRC is losing through this shutdown, and if indeed this may not affect some of the contractual agreement that the NRC already has with, some service providers who may have engaged you to be shipping their goods and all of that. Because what you have done right now is more of like a force majeure.
Yes. There's no doubt saying that it's affecting the resources of NRC. Abuja, Kaduna, for example, it has been shut down for a while now. And so all that we expected, all that what we projected on that corridor, we are losing it. We are not having it. But again, like you rightly pointed out, this is a force majeure, and I'm sure those we entered into contract with are aware of the situation. And I believe they will understand, because even the contracts we sign with them, such clauses are provided for in the contract. So they will understand. And I think, again, like I said, it's in the interest of the nation, it's in the interest of everybody. They're also in the same country with us. They feel the pitch just like every other person, like we are also feeling it. So I want to believe they will understand. It's not NRC's doing. It's just beyond us at the moment. But we believe that it's a challenge that would overcome in the course of time.
Okay, and I ask you to hold on there while I come back to Dr. Sam Amadi. Just take us through what this train service and the revamping of the rail infrastructure of Nigeria means to us as a people, because we've seen a progression since 2015 when this government came into place, and this was like the poster child of the Buhari government. And just before he exits next year, I mean, these same train services are shutting down. I mean, isn't it a big challenge for Buhari?
I think it is for the economy. But again, you see, the good thing, these services are very critical. One, they relieve the pressure on the roads. Part of why our road network gets, dilapidating all the time is because think about heavy-duty movements of vehicles carrying goods and services, goods across the major road. They lead to accidents. You see the Dangote trains or whichever big lorries moving on. Some of those could go through cargo train, and it's faster and more secured, and reduce the cost in terms of what importers and commercial business people pay, and of course end user fees and prices will go down. Again, greater mobility. One of the big economic growth of the U.S., one of the contributing factors to all the modern economy is road network. Goods move on real time. So if we're talking about, if you look at the waste and the losses in agricultural value chain, most of it relates to movement of goods across. So you can't even have fresh fruits move east to north with real time. So the train will be good help, and then of course the road will be lesser. But again, if you look at the fact that now we are facing terrorism, and then government is shutting down, apart from the optics and the psychology of terrorism is that if they force you to go down, to close down, maybe schools are vacating Abuja, maybe civil servants are asked to work short hours. Once you get that level, they are winning, because it's all about the instrument of terror. So apart from the economic consequences of this shutdown, the psychology of the war against terror is affected. It's
but what do we do as citizens to help our government out of this scenario?
Two things: that the government is wisely looking at risks. So you don't want to have another terror attack. It could really destroy government's reputation. So you try to control that, but control in a manner that is safe and also doesn't put much burden. What can we do as citizens? Of course, we need to be cooperative, help with intelligence, tips. But the problem with when government talk about citizens cooperating in this war, the lack of transparency and loss of social trust between the agencies themselves, the intelligence community, and the civilians themselves. So people don't feel comfortable. For example, take Kujo, for example. Days before then, the people reported that they saw strange movement. Even some of them reported seeing most of these guys. But do you have a protocol and a relationship? We used to talk about community policing. Do people feel comfortable walking to a security agency and reporting? Now, the issues around ethnic distrust, all the rumors and conspiracies around government involvement or top government officials involvement in this crisis undermine public trust and that level of civic cooperation that will drive higher, better real-time intelligence. So we are caught where we are victims. At times we can't help ourselves because we don't seem to have the opportunity or understand how government works or be empowered enough to say, look, if we give this intelligence, this guy will be caught.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like we are powerless. No,
we have the power. We as citizens can contribute. But the point I'm saying that you need to create both the channels, the communication, and at the same time, the social trust that makes citizens, you see, there must be an incentive. Even in developed countries, once they have less confidence in government, you see less civic support. So one of the things we should do is to pass the information. There are many ways we can help. And thankfully, people are now afraid of their lives, so they will have more incentive to report dangerous elements among themselves.
How this real infrastructure has been helpful to people. And I come back to you, Gang. Just two quick things before we end the show. First one is that how can Nigerians help to support the Nigerian Railway Corporation? Because this is our own entity. We love you guys. You've been very helpful to us with the revamping of the rail infrastructure in the country. It has helped movement of goods and services, including people, easier. How do we help you out in this scenario that you found yourself? And secondly, what sort of support services are you providing to families of those who are still in captivity after the March terrorist attack, where some of these Abuja to Kaduna train passengers were abducted? Some of them were freed yesterday, but of course, about 34 of them are still in captivity. What sort of support services are you providing for their families?
Okay, thank you. First, how can the people support the Nigerian Railway Corporation? I would say, when you see something, say something. How do I mean? Apart from the attacks that happened, I'm sure the people, apart from the attacks that happened, we have some of our facilities being vandalized along the corridor. When you see someone who is not supposed to be along the track, speak to someone. Contact the Nigerian Railway Corporation. Before the attack that happened on Abuja, Kaduna, I'm sure people witnessed some movement around the area. Nobody informed the Nigerian Railway Corporation. So when we look at the Nigerian Railway Corporation as our railway corporation, I mean for everybody, not just for the Nigerian Railway Corporation or just for the government. When you see anything going on along those corridors that you think are not right, contact the Nigerian Railway Corporation. And that way, it would help to prevent some of these nasty occurrences. A good point in hand is what happened along the Minna-Kaduna corridor. People around the community noticed strange movements around the area and quickly got in touch with the Nigerian Railway Corporation. And that caused us to stop the train service on that corridor. Assuming they never informed the Railway Corporation, would have another repeat of what happened in Abuja, Kaduna. So that way, the people can help the Nigerian Railway Corporation to serve them better. Again, on what are we doing on those who were kidnapped? First and foremost, I'll tell you that the discussion on the rescue of all those who were kidnapped has completely been taken over by the security agencies of Nigeria. Yes, the Nigerian Railway Corporation as a management reach out to them. The Federal Ministry of Transportation are also in touch constantly with them. But the issues of the rescue is entirely within the corridor of the security agencies. Yes, we speak with them through the ministry time to time, but they have taken over all of that rescue operation. Now, are we reaching out to the families whose loved ones are still on the captive? Yes, we are. We're reaching out to those as many as we can. We are reaching out to them. Again, when the incident happened, those who were in the hospitals, we reach out to them and made efforts to even pick up some of the bills. Those we can still get in touch with, we are reaching out to them, also assuring them that yes, NRC is with them. We've not forgotten about them. We may not be able to meet all of their requests, but in our own little way as an agency, we are doing what we can. That's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Okay. And I come to you, Dr. Sam Amadi. In all of this, to try to round off this conversation, what's the new thinking, new approach that we should embrace? Yeah, we've seen the minister talking about, bringing these electronic sensors and all of that, which will be very expensive, like you have said. Yeah. What was the way forward for protecting rail infrastructure? And then when eventually train services commence, how do we build confidence in passengers to be able to use this facility?
Rebuilding confidence is very important. I recall in 9/11 when it happened, it was difficult for people to fly in the fly the planes, even after Osama bin Laden and the Americans have put up very strong fight against the terrorists. But the government has to encourage. The message is important here. Again, we talk about what the new approach. The new approach will be that when we build this infrastructure, we should see infrastructure in a holistic sense, including the soft side of it, which is both the culture, the maintenance, the discipline. There are stories around maybe preparedness. We are now a country that's going to live in war for some time with enemies, call them insurgents. Enemies, call them insurgents, bandits, or terrorists. So we have to inculcate in our infrastructure development a preparedness system, early warning signals, and of course, not just the robust technology, but the soft side of it, which is intelligence, which is a people who are alert, a culture of maintenance, and even workforce that are conflict ready and terror sensitive, so that oftentimes we get caught napping because we're not really behaving as a people under war. So I would think that now this lesson teaches us that we're not going to, just like America did after the 9/11, they have never had it again. They revamped the Homeland Security Department, which was a product of the bipartisan National Commission.
Bipartisan approach.
And then they changed a lot of things about how the police, interagency collaboration and system. So a crisis like this should now create a new approach to do infrastructure, mainstreaming security awareness and readiness.
Of course, because the Nigerian Railways Corporation is not a security agency, so it will have to depend on security agencies to be able to achieve it. But they can mainstream it and
get people to be willing and ready to sense things.
Okay, almost. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi is a Rise News analyst and, of course, an associate professor of law. Almost thank you for joining us on the show. And, of course, James Zang of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, we must thank you so much for joining us and creating this perspective. And, of course, like I said earlier on the show, I mean, the NRC is our own baby. At all times, you always have our support. And we just hope that when the train services eventually commence, you continue to partner with Nigerians to ensure that this rail infrastructure is protected. Well, that's how it's been for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Sam Nasambo.